once again, there are issues of climate impacts. For example, there is plenty of evidence now from across the tropics that the hurricanes, typhoons, and cyclones are getting more intense. So the total number of cyclones may not increase, but the number of stronger category cyclones is seen to increase, which is consistent with the warming of the ocean, because the cyclones, generally speaking, hurricanes, typhoons are all cyclones. So cyclones take their energy from the ocean. The ocean heat content fuels the evaporation, condensation, heating, and the dynamics associated with the rotational flow. Okay, so if a cyclone that hits your country, let's say Typhoon Haiyan that hit Philippines, I think in 2011, and did tremendous damage, and it was one of the strongest cyclones on record at the time, and now they got hit again with another record typhoon. So there is attribution will show that Haiyan became stronger than normal because of climate change. So then all the impacts suffered by Philippines is now has a contribution from climate change, and the climate change thus far has been mostly because of rich countries, Europe, US and Russia used to emit a lot. So who is responsible for this additional damage? So concepts like loss and damage have been discussed. There's the idea of creating green funds to help developing countries, but not everything is working so well. So there it is in November, 10-11 November of 2011, if I'm not mistaken. And now stronger cyclones are becoming common in the Atlantic, Indian, and Pacific oceans. And the other additional factor is that even though Typhoon Haiyan might have hit Philippines, Philippines is part of the global economy. So the supply chain gets affected when Philippines gets damaged. So people have made calculations of how much damage was done in terms of GDP and economy because of the disruptions of supply from Philippines. So 6% of US production relies on supplies from the Philippines, and other countries like Argentina here is that, yes, and those are direct impacts. So you see that many countries in Europe, North America, South America, Africa, and so on were directly impacted by the supply chain effects, and there were also secondary impacts. 21% of the US production could suffer indirectly from the supply chain problems. So because the global economies are connected now, the global warming cannot be considered as a problem that's far away. So slowly it will begin to affect the global economy at some scale or the other. Those are additional factors that have to be considered. So the negotiations now look for these things. How do we protect everybody so that everybody is safe? These are called problems of global commons, right? Atmosphere is shared by everybody, and if you pollute here, it may get everywhere and affect everybody. So the so-called tragedy of the commons, if you don't know, you can look it up, means when there is a shared resource and multiple users are there, who cares for the sustainability of this shared resource? Does it become a tragedy where everybody exploits it and then you overuse the resource and then everybody loses, right? So in the mitigation and adaptation, you can look at this kind of framework where you take no action on mitigation or adaptation, then the cost of impacts is going to be higher. If you go mostly for adaptation, the cost of adaptation is going to be higher, and obviously cost of mitigation is less because you haven't spent much. Or if you go in this direction, you are going to increase the cost of mitigation, like fuel efficiencies, buildings, infrastructure protections, and so on. So cost of impacts is going to be less as well. So all mitigation, all adaptation, all kinds of calculations have to be made. Economists always worry about return on investments, right? So this is why you have to look for costs of climate action and then convince the governments and people that the investments are worth it. Okay? Not an easy problem at all, but nonetheless not something we can avoid for too long. There are other factors. For example, let's say Mumbai gets a projection that sea level is going to rise by 1 meter by 2050 or 2100, and then that Arabian Sea is warming, so more cyclones are going to come towards Mumbai. So the coastal inundation and storm surge are going to increase, but how much coast sea level rise can you actually protect yourself against? It then depends on the cost. If protecting against 1 meter of sea level rise costs $1 trillion, then Mumbai may not be able to afford it at all. Right? So there is the potential of the increase in sea level, and then there is the cost of protecting against sea level. So oftentimes the investments are made based on how much you can actually afford. So then you take a chance, right? So your risk level is high, and if you keep acting to reduce, mitigate climate change, then maybe you can get away with it. So anything but natural science at that point. It's socioeconomics, behavioral problems, and social science problems.